Hello, and welcome back, dear ones, to Freedom Through Truth. Here is Hans Peter again. Dear souls, today I have produced a very special video for you. The following information will completely turn your entire worldview upside down in just a few minutes. This will be a really tough nut to crack that we will tackle together. We expose a global indoctrination that has been occurring for millennia, a power and force responsible for much suffering on this earth. It is about a movement that has been falsifying history to its advantage for millennia, justifying displacement, genocide, and bloodshed for which there is no basis. Half the world has been deceived and still echoes slogans today, unaware of the demonic activities behind them. Opinionless researchers repeat phrases that they are not allowed to question at all, and we will change that. Today, we correct history. So join me now on a fascinating and shared journey. So, what exactly can you expect in the upcoming video? We will reveal to you who really gave Palestine its name and significantly influenced the culture. I will prove to you in a few points that Moses, Noah, David, Solomon, Abraham, Isaac, and Rebekah never followed the bloodthirsty war and storm, God Yahweh, from the Old Testament on which an entire world religion is based. They were not who they are believed to be. The history of these holy souls and wise protagonists has been stolen and manipulated to force through the prophecies and invented stories with violence and blood. On one hand, we will also reveal to you that there was never any persecution or exodus from Egypt. In my discussions in the books Moses' Path of Truth and Noah, Son of an Anunnaki, I delve very intensively into these theses and also prove them conclusively. We will also reveal to you, this will be interesting now, where you sand the Greek alphabet really stood. Which alphabet was the model for the Greek alphabet? And what does it have to do with the north of Europe and the Hellenes, the Berbers, the Germans? While the Greek alphabet, dear ones, first appeared around the 8th century BC, the characters shown shortly are dated to be at least 3,000 to 3,500 years old. So where does the Greek alphabet really come from, would be the question. Here I have a small overview, which I will show you. On the left, you see the Greek delta, and on the right, the same symbol in this older script called Yor. On the left, you see epsilon, same symbol, significantly older, called Jad, Jat, or Jan. Then we have theta, which is called Jap there. It was called Jota, An, Yang, Ya. We have lambda, which was also present in this script. All the characters, I will explain that in detail later, and the omicron, which is shown here on the right and in various spellings, was named Jarjats or Jas that time. Very, very, very interesting, dear ones. So where does the Greek alphabet really come from? That is a very interesting and exciting question because it forms the basis for many, many modern scripts. Yes, the explanations today can trigger something very special, dear ones, namely healing. Healing of history. Today we are talking about Celts, about Berbers, about Philistines, about Palestinians, about Hellenes, and all of this is interconnected. It is an incredibly exciting story that can truly bring healing. Now is the time when all these traumas of human history resurface in conflicts, whether in Ukraine, Palestine, or elsewhere. This is karmic. It is coming up again to be seen, to have the chance to resolve it now. However, this requires clarity, purity, and truth. And that's why it's important that you really share this video across all media, share, spread, so that as many people as possible can enter this new consciousness, this knowledge, in the collective to positively change the morphogenetic field. This can create true wonders. You can help change history, change the present, reshape the future. That sounds fun, doesn't it? From home, from the couch. So first of all, we need to elaborate a bit and talk about the Berbers today. The Berbers are officially the descendants of pre-Arab peoples. That could also be how to describe it. They live today, for example, in the regions of North Africa, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, and Egypt, Mali, Niger, and Mauritania. Their language is related to ancient Egyptian, also very interesting. So, from around 2000 BC, my dear ones, the Berber language, which is called Amazigh, is said to have developed. Okay? They spread from the Nile Delta westward, in that direction, across the northern Sahara. And from that, the Berber kings later emerged. A very famous king is, for example, Juba I, who in Caesarea had the king's son Juba, the second act. He was an adopted child, and he was the brother of Jesus. He was the one we later know by the name of Apostle Thomas. If you know the book Thomas, My Life as an Apostle, you know the story. And his wife was the daughter of Cleopatra VII, called Cleopatra VIII, Selene. And both are buried today in Churchill, in the former biblical Caesarea, and their grave is still called today the grave of the Christians. They existed at the same time as Jesus and were by his side for a long time, which is also reflected in the name of the grave. In 2001, let's briefly remember the fact that the language of the Berbers developed westward from Egypt. Okay, this is very important for later, for our research. The Arabs, for example, hired the Berbers for the war against Spain. Very interesting. And they called them, based on the term barbarians. Oh, look, barbarian. We also know barbarian from Vedic, from Nordic. Yes, Barbara, we still have today. And barbarian is the Trinity. The Arabs believed that the Berbers descended from Noah. Oh, look there. What do the Arabs write about it? I discovered, and this is a very exciting detail that we will also address today. In 2001, an Islamic culture emerged there only through the invasion of the Arabs, not before. And it is documented that the Berbers had a Christian and pagan past for Islamization. And their script is called Tifinagh, or also referred to as Tifinagh. And this is a key, a very big key for the understanding of humanity. You will learn more about it shortly. It is important to know that even today, many Berber children are born with blonde hair and blue eyes. But why is that? Where did the script come from? And if you now research in the English Britannica, which I did, and read the explanations about the Baba and reached the end of the article, I sat there with my mouth open. Dear ones, then it gets really exciting. Why? Why is there a huge article about the Philistines on the same page of the same website, under the entry for the Berbers? Oh, look there. I was really left speechless because I knew and know that they descend from the Philistines. However, the official theory and history remain silent about it. Now we come to the Philistines, who are not taught in the classical school. History lessons. You will learn today why. Because they are a key, almost a master key in understanding the last millennia. I have already written a lot about the Philistines in my books. They invaded Egypt in the 12th century BC, and they fought in an incredibly large battle against Ramses III, Battle of Medinet Habu. This is a very important time, dear ones, for our entire understanding of history. Why? It is the time of the Ramesside kings in Egypt. Our investigation, see also my book Moses, Path of Truth, has revealed that Moses was the son of Ramses III. He was Ramses VIII, and according to the Egyptians, Ramses, also called Ramos, is without Rasmos. According to the Egyptians, the Philistines came from Kaftor. Yes, dear God, who really knows what Kaftor means? Yes. So, here they want to mislead us historically, and they actually identify Kaftor with the people of Crete. And that is a flat untruth. Kaftor, dear ones, is my term for the pillar of heaven, okay? Which the Egyptians also saw in the far north, on the so-called 9th Egyptian arc. These are latitudes that the Egyptians had. It is interesting to see the maps of the Egyptians. Where is the 9th arc located? The 9 arc people, the Philistines, the Kaftor. The 9th arc is located where? Today, Britain, Denmark, and Heligoland are, namely at the 54th latitude. Crazy, right? The Egyptians also referred to the Philistines as the 9 arch people, as mentioned. And this is clear and impossible to misinterpret, unless one wants it that way. Further evidence. The Egyptians said the following about these Vikings. From the islands and mainland, at the ocean sea, in the distant ocean of the North Sea, from the islands in the ocean, the North and the Baltic Sea islands, their islands torn and blown away by the storm. Pliny the Elder also wrote that Hyperborea passed through the 9th circle, but then it was probably the southernmost area. I have listed it. I will show it to you, sharing the screen. So, here you can see the 54th parallel quite well. And up here is Heligoland. Yes, in front of the Ida estuary, 2001. The area here on the left is Britain, drawn closer here. Again. So this is really very, very, very clear. And you can also see, yes, I will show it again, with finds that were made in Egypt in Medinet Habu, 2001, such vases. I was at the Historical Museum in Berlin. There is a display case where finds from the Battle of Medinet Habu are located, and there they do not tell us the truth, but they do not lie either. They simply write on the display case finds from Medinet Habu. They do not tell us where they come from. They do not tell us that there were finds of yew sand due to bike paths made of birchwood from the north, that the Philistines had Ross Habishel from Norwegian fjord horses, and so on. And it goes on like this. Here you see pictures of Medinet Habu and of the battle, of the capture of the Philistines. There are thousands of square meters of reliefs in Medinet Habu. It is very exciting. So, what happened afterwards? And now we come to the core of the matter. After this battle, which the Philistines lost, they spread out to the east and west. And now it gets really exciting. We are getting to the core of the history. Those who went west also came to Libya and Morocco and gave the Berbers their script, the Tifinagh script. Do we have evidence for that, or am I just claiming it? Oh yes, have that. Now we open Pandora's box. My dear ones, some may not like this, but it is clarity, purity, and truth. Those who went east founded a land called Usand, which is now called Palestine. Oh, look there. The word Palestine clearly derives from the Philistines. This is very well documented, recorded in Roman writings. The Romans called the land of the Philistines Palestine. Palestine equals Palestine. The names of the cities in former Palestine are all of Indo-European origin. Ashkelon, Ashdod, Gad, and Ekron. And hold on, Gaza. These 5 cities of Indo-European name origin were also called the Pentapolis, the League of the Philistines. We are talking here about a land, dear ones, that was said to belong to a certain chosen people. But who was the chosen people in reality? Does anyone even have a claim to this land? That is the real question. Allegedly, the Israelites are said to have fought against the Philistines according to the Bible. You may also know the legend of Samson, as well as that of David and Goliath. And that is said to have taken place around 1000 BC. Modern scientists and archaeologists, in 2001, I am only quoting now, claim that the very first groups of Israelites only emerged around 1000 BC and originated from the Canaanites. In ancient Canaan, it gets really intense. Yahweh was the god of war. He was not a creator god. He was the son of El and Asherah. In Midian, he was even considered a volcano god. And here we see, fits what is nothing at all. In Joshua 13:02-6, Judges 3 and 30 are examined, and Judges 1006-8, we read about the area in which the Philistines lived at that time. There, however, it is told to us that this land is supposed to belong to the Israelites. Modern archaeology, however, has no conclusive evidence for this, except for the conquests by the Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, the Macedonians under Alexander the Great, the Egyptians, and the Romans. Essentially, it is the story of 2 arch-enemies in the Old Testament, the Israelites and the Philistines. Whether the story actually happened that way remains questionable. One cannot build global politics on this open theory, which has no conclusive evidence, or claim sole sovereignty. Can one? I believe you are slowly catching on to what this is about, right? Let's do a simulation. Let's turn everything around 180 degrees. This will be very, very exciting. Pay attention. Let's turn the tables and open our minds. Let's assume that someone had anchored in the Indian scriptures a long, long time ago, that Buddha once worked in Germany, for example, and that your God promised them this land, which legitimizes war, mass destruction, and genocide. There is no historical evidence that this land Germany, belongs to them, except for their religious scripture. Is this scripture really from their God, or rather from human hands, subjectively and politically written? They themselves believe comes from their God. Would they be right in their eyes to invade Germany for this reason and to claim it as their land? And what kind of God would that be, who legitimizes murder and slaughter? Perhaps rather a demonic being that takes pleasure when blood flows. These are just questions I am asking. Would we simply accept that if there are no historical proofs for it? And even if so, countries have been constantly occupied and borders changed over the course of thousands of years. And you also know that, for example, the history of King Solomon, in my opinion and theory, and the evidence in my book, was in Spain. He was the son of David. As I said, I wrote about this in Moses' Path of Truth and Thomas, My Life as an Apostle. I also made a 3-part series about it on YouTube. It was also successfully published on Stolen History Net Used. Dear ones, once again, there is not a single solid proof, for example, for the Temple of Solomon in Israel. There is none but countless hints, also of a historical and archaeological nature, in Spain. According to the Bible, 480 years are said to have passed between the 4th year of the construction of Solomon's temple and the Exodus. My calculations have shown that there was no exodus of the Israelites from Egypt, as there were no Israelites there. And this is the view of all archaeologists. Let's assume an exodus of the Philistines from Egypt after the Battle of Medinet Habu. Oh, it gets interesting. Perhaps there was indeed some kind of exodus, just not on that scale. I mean, the Bible states there were 2 million men with Moses, counting children, cattle, and the entourage. You would probably have a procession of about 800 kilos in length and 100 meters in width, which is impossible. That just can't happen. And so many people didn't live there at that time anyway. So let's assume an exodus of the Philistines after their defeat in the Battle of Medinet Habu, which took place in the 12th century, around 1129 BC. From there, going back or forward 430 years, we arrive in the 7th century, where the regions in Spain actually split into a north and a south due to the invasion of the Celtiberians. Here too, we now find historical evidence. The son of Solomon, Rehoboam, according to the Bible, ruled in one part of it, and Jeroboam, the first, ruled in another part of Spain. Thus, Jerome I ruled in the north, a Gaul. King Solomon and King David themselves are even depicted in colorful stained glass windows in Jerusalem, as blonde and red-brown haired with smooth hair. A really exciting story, dear ones, that you should read. We also find evidence, legends, stories, but also archaeological hints and references to these demon towers in Spain, where demons were banished. They are endless. We find labyrinths in Toledo, especially in Canada. King Solomon had 72 demons imprisoned. It was a European phenomenon, the demon towers. Regensburg was also full of them in the Middle Ages. So once again the question, who has a claim to the land of Palestine? During the time of the Philistines, the Assyrian king, Adad-nirari III, succeeded to demand tribute from them, and then the land fell into the hands of the Egyptians. Subsequently, the Babylonians and Nebuchadnezzar II came. Then they were under the control of the Persians, then the Macedonians, and then the Romans. Is one really relying on questionable biblical statements of a God of war here, Yahweh, who was never a god? According to the narratives, produced only genocides, wars, and mass murder, and we can talk openly about that. This raises the question of whether it is, as mentioned, a powerful demon that one seemingly still follows today. I find that incredible. David is said to have defeated the Philistines according to tradition. However, there is no evidence for this except for statements in a questionable text that cannot provide proof. If David had defeated the Philistines, then they would have had to rule over the land, which is also not historically proven. If the story of David and Solomon actually took place in Spain, my dear ones, then it tells the story of the invasion of the northern Celts, the Iberian Celts, the Celtiberians in Spain. But not around 1000 BC, rather, somewhat later. This can be determined very easily, my dear ones, if one closely examines the generational sequence, which will also be exciting, genealogy. But I explain this in detail in my books and also in other videos, because if we look at the generational sequence, it cannot have been 1000 BC. Okay. However, many shrines and temples of the Philistines were definitely found in Palestine, which point to Egyptian design elements.